The stage lights burned bright against the polished floor as a skinny, nervous young man named Ethan Rivers stepped forward, clutching a microphone that trembled in his hands like it could feel his heartbeat. The crowd fell silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, expectant, electric. His clothes were worn, his sneakers frayed at the edges, and the way he looked out into the sea of faces made it clear this wasn't just another performance, it was a lifeline. Ethan had spent the last 5 years sleeping in homeless shelters, busking on street corners, and washing dishes in diners just to stay alive. Music had been his escape, his one unbroken promise to himself, the thing that kept him from collapsing completely when the world took everything else away. Tonight, standing under the golden glare of the stage lights, he wasn't just chasing a dream, he was fighting for redemption, for a second chance, for proof that he still mattered. When the host asked his name, his voice cracked, but he managed to say it softly, Ethan Rivers, and the moment those 2 words left his lips, something in the audience shifted, a strange sense that they were about to witness something unforgettable. The judges exchanged polite smiles, the kind they reserved for contestants they didn't expect much from, but Ethan didn't notice. He was staring at the ceiling, whispering a quiet prayer to his late mother, who had always told him, "Your voice is a light, baby. Don't let the dark take it." The music began, gentle at first, the haunting chords of a song he had written himself called "Carry Me Home." It was about loss, hope, and forgiveness, but mostly about the people who believed in you when no one else did. His first note was shaky, uncertain, but by the time the second verse came, something inside him broke free. His voice, raspy, pure, raw with pain, filled the theater with a depth of emotion that made even the camera crew forget to move. The audience leaned forward unconsciously, drawn into his world, his truth. As he sang, flashes of his past played like ghosts in his mind, the car accident that took his parents when he was 17, the debt that forced him out of school, the nights he sang in the cold just to earn enough for a sandwich. But beneath it all, the memory that hurt most wasn't loss, it was the moment he almost gave up, standing on a bridge one night, wondering if anyone would miss him. It was a stranger who stopped, handed him a cup of coffee, and said, "I don't know your story, but I hope tomorrow finds you better." That one act of kindness had saved him, and tonight's song was his way of paying it forward, to remind the world that even the smallest kindness can pull someone back from the edge. When he hit the chorus, his voice cracked but didn't break, it soared. The lyrics poured out like a confession, "When I was lost and all alone, you carried me home." By the second chorus, people in the audience were wiping their eyes. The first judge, a woman known for her tough critiques, blinked rapidly and looked down, hiding the tears that slipped out despite herself. The second judge leaned back, whispering something to the producer, but all eyes stayed on Ethan. It wasn't the most technically perfect performance, but it was human, achingly human. Every note bled sincerity, every pause carried the weight of someone who had lived every word. And then came the bridge, the soft, trembling whisper before the final explosion of sound. Ethan dropped to his knees, clutching the microphone like a lifeline, his voice shaking as he whispered, "To the stranger who gave me hope that night, this one's for you." He didn't know that somewhere in the crowd sat a woman named Grace Mitchell, the very same stranger who had offered him that cup of coffee years ago. She gasped as recognition hit her. Tears streamed down her face as she realized this was the boy she had spoken to on that dark bridge, the one she had prayed for and never seen again. She rose slowly, unable to contain her emotion, and the cameras caught her sobbing, hands over her mouth. As the last note echoed into silence, time seemed to stop. Ethan looked up, tears blurring his vision, his chest heaving. The audience was frozen, as if afraid to breathe, before erupting into thunderous applause that shook the room. People stood, clapping, shouting, crying. The host's mouth hung open. Even the judges were on their feet, overwhelmed. One of them, the notoriously stoic Simon-type figure named Ryan Cole, took a deep breath, removed his glasses, and said softly, that was real. And then, something extraordinary happened. The female judge, known for her compassion but never impulsive, reached forward with trembling hands and slammed the golden buzzer. The confetti exploded from the ceiling like golden rain, swirling around Ethan as he dropped his face into his hands, overwhelmed by disbelief. His body shook with sobs, the weight of every hardship, every lonely night, every hungry morning suddenly lifted in that shower of gold. The crowd roared louder, chanting his name. But amid the chaos, Grace pushed her way through the crowd, tears blurring her vision, her heart pounding. Security hesitated but let her through when she pointed to the stage and shouted, "That's him. That's the boy from the bridge." The cameras followed as she climbed the steps, and the world watched in stunned silence as she approached him. Ethan looked up, confused, his eyes widening when she said softly, "You kept your promise. You found tomorrow." He froze, memories crashing through him, the sound of the river that night, her kind voice, the warmth of that coffee cup in his frozen hands. "It's you," he whispered, his voice breaking. The audience collectively gasped. The judges covered their mouths. Grace nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she hugged him tightly. "I never forgot you," she whispered. "You reminded me that even a small kindness matters." The cameras zoomed in. As confetti continued to fall, the two of them locked in an embrace that transcended words. The internet would later call it the most human moment ever captured on live TV. In that instant, it wasn't about fame or talent shows anymore, it was about the simple truth that compassion can ripple across years, finding its way back home. As the audience continued to applaud, the judges themselves were crying. Ryan Cole stood and said, "I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen thousands of auditions. But this reminded me why we started doing this in the first place. To find something true." The moment went viral within hours, shared across every platform with millions of captions like "Faith in humanity restored" and "This is why kindness matters." But Ethan's story didn't end there. Overnight, he became a symbol of hope. Talk shows, news outlets, and celebrities wanted to hear his story, but he stayed humble, always saying, "It wasn't about me. It was about her, and everyone like her who still believes in kindness." He used his sudden fame to launch a foundation called Carry Me Home, dedicated to helping homeless youth discover their passions and rebuild their lives through art and music. Within a year, the foundation had supported hundreds of teens who had been forgotten by society, giving them instruments, lessons, and safe housing. The story of Ethan and Grace became a global movement. Schools began using their clip as a lesson in empathy, churches shared it as a sermon about faith in humanity, and even governments referenced it in speeches about compassion and resilience. Yet what truly made it legendary wasn't the fame, it was the reunion that followed months later. On the finale night of the talent show, Ethan stood on that same stage, now confident, radiant, holding his guitar. The producers invited Grace to join him again, and as the world watched, he dedicated his final performance to every person who's ever been kind without expecting anything in return. The song he sang, an original titled Golden Rain, told the story of how one act of love can change two lives forever. His lyrics painted images of strangers crossing paths, hearts connecting in silence, and hope blooming in unexpected places. By the time he finished, the audience was weeping again, standing in unison. Even before the results were announced, everyone knew it didn't matter whether he won or lost, he had already won something far greater, the love of millions and the proof that kindness can echo louder than any applause. He didn't take home the trophy that night, but the next morning, his song topped charts across the world. Fans from over 50 countries sent letters saying his story helped them forgive, helped them try again, helped them believe that humanity still had light. Years later, Ethan would look back on that night not as the moment he became famous, but as the night he truly began to live. He often visited the same bridge where he once stood. Ready to give up, sometimes bringing his guitar to play softly to the river. He called it his place of rebirth. On one such evening, he found a note taped to the railing. It read, "You don't know me, but your story stopped me from making the same mistake you almost did. Thank you for saving my life." He smiled through tears, realizing that the ripple of that single cup of coffee had now reached another soul. The golden buzzer moment that shocked the world became a legend, not because of the fame or the viral clip, but because it revealed something timeless about the human spirit, that in a world filled with noise, pain, and division, one act of kindness can still create music that unites us all. And somewhere out there, someone who had lost all hope might watch that video, hear Ethan's trembling voice, see Grace's tears, and remember that no matter how dark life gets, there's always someone ready to carry you home.